Wasabi! Operation iDroid here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about a lot of important stuff, questions that you guys are always asking, and please, I implore you to stay throughout this whole video so that you learn more about these situations and why apps aren't working, why there's a thing called the build store, and much more. Please stay and don't ignore this video, or I'll just continue to ignore you guys in the comment section below, because it gets pretty annoying when questions are asked that I've already answered. And granted, I don't expect everyone to watch this video, but if you do, thank you, and let's get into the topic. So one of the biggest questions I get is, why do I have to pay for the build store? Or why is it that these apps aren't working anymore? I just want to play Game Boy on my iPhone. What's so hard about that? Now, it is pretty difficult because there's someone that doesn't want you to play Game Boy on your iPhone, and that's Nintendo, it's Apple. Both of them would like to restrict what you can do on your iPhone, and the only apps that you're technically allowed to get on your iPhone are the ones that come directly from the App Store. Now, as you know, any other application that I've shown you how to get usually doesn't come from the App Store, and that's because we are trying to get around Apple. Now, if you remember, about a year ago, back in the day, it was really simple to get emulators without a jailbreak, and that was because there was a thing called the date trick, and with that, you were able to exploit the install method of these emulators and applications and easily get them on your iOS device. However, with iOS 8.1 being released, the date trick was completely abolished. It no longer worked. Apple patched that exploit, and everyone that was looking to install emulators and applications without a jailbreak that don't come from the App Store were pretty much left in the dark. Now, much hasn't changed with the ways that you do install emulators, because the emulators were always distributed with a thing called an enterprise certificate. Now, an enterprise certificate is basically a kind of signing method that is given to companies to give apps to their employees. So just an example here, for example, Walmart, if you know what Walmart is, let's say they have an app for employees and they want all of their employees to have that app and only their employees. So they wouldn't technically put it on the App Store, they would distribute it amongst themselves with an enterprise certificate. And the way that we distribute emulators and applications and tons of other people to you all is through these enterprise certificates that are gained and found in very difficult ways, because Apple isn't going to give us enterprise certificates knowing that we're going to be using them to distribute emulators. So the process of getting enterprise certificates is very difficult. However, they do come up every now and again, and that is how the emulators are distributed. But now you may be asking, why is it that the emulators stop working after a while? And that's because once Apple catches on to the fact that this enterprise certificate isn't being used for what they said it was supposed to be used to, they'll revoke it. And once the certificate is revoked, the applications will no longer work. And pretty much how the revocations work is that your phone checks to see if the certificate is still valid each time it turns off. So whenever you turn off your iOS device after getting an application like NDS for iOS, it'll check to see if the certificate is still valid and if that application should still be working on your phone. If not, then it'll just continue to crash each time you try to open the application. And going back to a year ago, the date trick is what let us get around that, because if you set your date back before the certificate was revoked, it would theoretically allow you to open the app, and that's how we solved the problem a year ago. But now that Apple has stopped that, it's become increasingly difficult to get you all your emulators and applications. However, a thing came along called the Build Store, and you may be wondering, how is it that the Build Store guarantees that your applications will work? And it's because the Build Store uses another method that pretty much requires a lot of money. Enterprise certificates are expensive, but the way the Build Store distributes their application is a lot more expensive, and that's why it requires users to pay so that they can pay for their employees, they can pay for their what they do to get you all the application. And we wish that we could do these things for free. It's not like it has always been free. There's always been someone paying for these enterprise certificates and giving it to you all for free out of the goodness of their heart. However, with the build store method, it's not that easy because it's a lot of money. It's very serious. And now the next question that you may be getting to me, and you all have asked a lot, is why haven't other applications come back? Why is it always NDS for iOS? Why is it always MovieBox? What happened to GBA for iOS? Why doesn't that application come back? And that's a good question. And really, there's no answer, because each time, for example, iEmulators distributes an application to you all, we're not the ones that have the enterprise certificate. It's usually someone in Japan or China that's able to get an enterprise certificate, and they're the ones that pick and choose what applications that they want to sign. Usually, it's for illegal purposes, like getting paid applications from the App Store and distribute them for free. And every once in a while, they'll just pick up applications like NDS for iOS or MovieBox, and that's how you guys are able to get those applications. But me, myself, I have no control, or iEmulators has no control over what applications get signed. And it's honestly just a waiting game. Trust me, I myself have tried getting an enterprise certificate for you all so I could distribute the applications that you all want, but getting one is not easy. It's not like you can just go to Walmart and be like, I'll take 5 enterprise certificates, let's go. Not to mention that they're pretty expensive at that. So that's kind of the situation that we've been in for the past, let's say, like 6 months, I want to say, since iOS 8.1 has been released. And of course, you guys know that each time an application is released, I let you guys know as soon as possible so that you can get it before it's revoked. And so far, the enterprise certificate is really the only way to get these applications. Now, there hasn't been an exploit with iOS 8.1 like the date trick that permanently lets you get your applications besides the build store. However, there has been one other method that has seemed to have been working pretty well, and that is, if you last watched my last tutorial about Playbox HD, that used another method that wasn't the enterprise certificate and required you to sign in with an Apple ID and password that was given to you by the creators of Playbox HD. And pretty much this method works by the application getting onto the App Store, somehow passing by all the restrictions, because usually emulators or applications like Playbox HD wouldn't be allowed on the App Store, but somehow they sneak their way in. And once they're on the App Store, before they're taken off, if they get bought or just installed with an Apple ID, pretty much you have it forever because it's in your installed section of the Apple ID. And this method could theoretically be a way that you all could get your emulators and applications, but the applications would first have to somehow make it onto the App Store, which is very difficult because Apple's restrictions about applications being on their App Store is pretty difficult. So besides that, the only real thing that's left to do is jailbreak. Now, I know there's a really negative connotation between jailbreaking, but really, it isn't the worst thing in the world. Rather, it frees your iOS device. Now, I know some of you guys don't want to jailbreak, and that's completely fine. And the fact of the matter is, as I'm uploading this video right now, there's no jailbreak for iOS 8.3, which is the current software. So nothing we can do about that either. But hopefully in the future, a jailbreak will be coming out. And if you're willing to do that, then definitely that is a way that you can get your favorite emulators and applications. But again, if you're not willing to jailbreak, then it's just a waiting game. We're still not giving up. We're trying to find you guys ways to get your emulators and applications. However, we're fighting against Apple, and that's pretty difficult if you ask me. However, if you are willing to pay, there is a guaranteed way that we've already found to get you your emulators and applications, and that is the build store. So if you're willing to do that, there'll be a tutorial linked in the description below. You can get all your favorite emulators like GBA for iOS, NDS for iOS, and all of that good stuff. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully now you understand why it's so difficult to get these applications and why your preferred emulator or application hasn't been released yet. It's kind of funny that a lot of you guys, not a lot of you guys, that some people in the comment section can bet their life on me being the one that doesn't want you to get these emulators in application. Trust me, I'm trying my hardest to do these for you guys, and I want to be as transparent as possible, that you guys know how it works, how it's done, and that I'm trying. I promise you that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for sticking with me throughout this whole video. If you're hearing me say this right now, please leave a like so that I know that you made it this far. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and welcome to the operation.